Well, good evening and welcome to The Story. I'm Evan Watson in for Blair Best. We know politics can be messy and at times personal or vindictive. That drama easy to escalate in small town governments. And a recent case in Oregon shows just how bizarre and contentious leading a community can be. It's our big story tonight. One of the wildest stories in Oregon politics is playing out right now, not in Salem, not even in Portland, but in a small town in Lincoln County along the Oregon coast. The mayor of the city of Waldport was voted out by city council and then escorted out of a subsequent city council meeting by deputies as the crowd raged in the mayor's support. Producer Ashley Koch went to Waldport to find out what's going on here.
I'm ashamed of yourself. Shameful.
That's Heidi Lambert, now former mayor of Waldport, being escorted out of a city council meeting earlier this month after council unanimously voted her out of office. Minutes later, she was let back into City Hall to cheers from the crowd. Lambert would end up with a ticket.
My word was disrupting the peace.
All this just 4 months after she took office in the city of 2,200 people, about 15 miles south of Newport. It's been a rocky 4 months, involving suspicions of financial irregularities by a local nonprofit, confrontations at City Hall, and the mayor ultimately accused of cronyism.
Talk about small town politics.
That's city manager Dan Cutter. He says this all started with a local nonprofit.
So, unfortunately, Beachcombers is kind of the linchpin that gets us into what happened with the mayor.
Last summer, Beachcombers came to the city asking for a grant. They put on a big summer festival and at the time ran the city's farmers market. But Cutter says this year he turned down the group's grant request.
At that time, the numbers that they provided to the city and the information they provided didn't match.
He says the financial information looked suspicious, and he ultimately cut the city's ties with Beachcombers. That would be a decision that would prove unpopular.
I had a lot of questions about that conflict and how it was handled.
Lambert says she told people to write out their formal complaints and send them to City Hall.
I went to my mailbox, and there was a lot more letters than the few that I thought might be there.
And all of them were opened. The clerks told her it was city procedure to open and scan all letters and send them to the city manager, Dan Cutter. Lambert called that procedure concerning.
Because my understanding was these were formal complaints about the city manager, so why would they send them to him? And they said that's what they were directed to do, and then asked me to leave.
The clerks say there was a lot more to that interaction. They both complained to city council about how the mayor acted that day. Finance manager Ellen Valentine called the interaction unacceptable and aggressive, saying that Lambert insisted that the letters be scanned to her and called it a relentless onslaught. Office manager Robin Morris says Lambert ordered her in a demanding tone and said she was very shaken afterward.
She raised her voice and it, elevated the conversation and got quite demanding and hostile with my staff.
It's a bit of he said, she said. There's no video. City Hall cameras didn't work that way.
They weren't set to record as security cameras. That's since been rectified.
But a hearing was called anyway.
And then they started telling me that they didn't trust me, that they thought that I was deceitful, that they knew that I had a pattern of hostility, and they asked me to resign.
City Council unanimously voted Lambert out of office, a 6-0 vote.
She showed no remorse, did not issue an apology for her actions in relation to the city staff.
Citing a city charter rule preventing city officials from ordering staff to do things for them.
The city manager is the boss, and he directs them about what they do and what they don't do.
I didn't understand the protocol. I think that this is a mistake and that I want another chance. I want to be able to work with them.
So on April 10th, Lambert emailed city council and staff to let them know that she was not vacating her seat and that she planned to run the meeting as usual.
So I called my attorney and he said, if you feel safe, you need to go sit in your seat. They took your right away to make a public comment, so now you have to assert yourself.
Less than 5 minutes later, she was led out of City Hall. A crowd of people upset.
We voted her in.
I didn't vote for anyone.
I heard this person, and you have taken away my vote.
But Cutter says it had to happen so council could get work done.
I can't have her sit and, we can't vote if she's voting. We can't just pretend that she's not there.
It's bizarre, to say the least. It's just really bizarre.
Lambert says she ran for mayor to teach her kids about the importance of democracy. Now they're seeing just how messy democracy can sometimes be.
More than ever, I want to teach them that no matter how afraid and terrified they are, they have to stand up. They have to say, that's not true.
Ashley Koch, KGW News.
Lambert says her attorney doesn't think her removal was constitutional and that she didn't get due process, so they're suing to get her seat back. She says she thinks she'll win. Dan Cutter says if that happens, he thinks the city will shut down and city staff will begin to quit. In the meantime, he says the mayor's seat will stay vacant until the legal process is resolved. So what do you think about this coastal small town drama? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090. Speaking of hyper-vocal political crowds, Washington State Congresswoman Representative Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez could hardly get a word in last night at her own town hall meeting in Vancouver. A massive crowd turned up with signs and packed into the meeting space. The line wrapped around the building and many people couldn't even get in. The crowd spent the evening yelling over the Congresswoman and each other. One of their biggest concerns when Gluesenkamp-Perez broke with Democrats to support a controversial Republican-led voter ID bill called the SAVE Act.
How do you justify possible disenfranchisement of millions of legal voters?
So, one of the confidence in American elections, Americans believe that only U.S. citizens should be determining the outcome of American elections. And any idea that I am standing to disenfranchise people is patently false.
People who attended us tell us they were unhappy overall with the way the Congresswoman answered their questions last night, and they feel like they weren't heard.
We write those questions down, she gets them, she reads them ahead of time and answers the question that she's comfortable with, and it feels like we're just being silenced.
Many of them accused her of being a Democrat in name only and said she should have a run as an independent if she's not going to vote with Democrats. They said they want her to take a stronger stand against the Trump administration.
There's a lot of frustration, and if she's not aware of the level of frustration, that's on her. I know we joined Indivisible, my husband and I, and we've been doing a lot of phone calls, showing up at her office, signing petitions. She has to be aware that people in this area are very frustrated. And I think that it was on her to come prepared to address these issues that she has been hearing about for weeks and weeks from many of us.
It is worth noting the Southwest Washington area and Congressional District 3 is a purple district, and MGP tends to position herself more in the middle on key issues to gain support from different types of voters. Gluesenkamp-Perez's Republican predecessor, Jamie Herrera Butler, lost her seat after voting to impeach President Donald Trump during his first term. Multnomah County is facing its largest budget deficit in over a decade, and this week, County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson released a new balanced budget that includes cuts to almost all programs and departments. Vega Peterson says the budget prioritizes programs that serve the most vulnerable people in the community, including homeless services, but even that area is facing cuts.
I'm prioritizing direct services that are most impactful and effective for people struggling to make ends meet, who are homeless, who are ill, have disabilities, have no access to other care.
Lower than expected revenues from property taxes and other sources means the county faces a $15 million shortfall in its general fund and a decreased operating budget of $77 million. More than 100 jobs across the county are potentially on the chopping block. Vega Peterson said the budget is focused on keeping people safe.
Each of us also deserves to live in a safe community. We know that when our streets are safe for everyone, our services are more accessible. Multnomah County plays a key role in safety through improved conditions in our neighborhood and services that directly respond to crime, hold people accountable, protect people and property from harm, and support victims.
But it did not take long for the county's top prosecutor to share his opinion, kicking off a public statement back and forth between the county leaders Thursday afternoon.
This morning, I was quite frankly just disgusted by what I saw. This budget absolutely does not support public safety.
District Attorney Nathan Vasquez says his $54 million budget would see a 5% reduction from the previous year, which he says means the DA's office could lose 10 employees. He believes cuts like that to public safety are not what the public wants.
So this is a direct move in the wrong direction for this community.
Vega Peterson addressed the DA's concerns directly. In a statement, she said the DA's budget has increased 57% since 2019. And she said, quote, "No one jumps the line and gets special treatment because they go on TV and talk loudly." In response, Vasquez called that number, quote, misleading, saying the county's budget has nearly doubled since 2019. And he wonders why the DA's budget has not kept up with the overall growth of the county. Vasquez ended his statement writing, quote, "I understand the chair does not like me objecting to the cuts she is proposing for our office, but I'm here to represent the public, not the chair. And the public is tired of a lack of investment in public safety." The chair's current budget that's causing all this drama is not final. County commissioners will begin discussing changes on May 8th and will approve a finalized budget on June 12th. Up next on the story, some of your thoughts and experiences with members of the Rajneeshpuram commune in Central Oregon in the early 80s, including one viewer who said he grew up on the Big Money Ranch. Plus, some of President Trump's headline-making executive orders are losing their momentum thanks to a pair of rulings in federal court. We'll explain when the story returns. Now let's get to some of your thoughts and memories of Rajneeshpuram in Central Oregon. Last night, Laurel Porter brought us a story about a woman who was a child at the Big Muddy Ranch commune near Antelope, Oregon in the early 80s. Cerrito Carroll detailed the abuse and neglect she experienced there, and she returned to the area for the first time in 40 years since it shut down. That story is available right now on our KGW YouTube page, our streaming app KGW Plus, if you missed it last night. Following the story, we asked for your feedback. A viewer on YouTube wrote, "The local news in the 80s talked about them every day here. KGW's archive footage certainly supports that. We posted a few of the station's documentaries from back then on our streaming app KGW Plus as well." We even heard from a man who said he also grew up as a Rajneeshi.
I grew up on the ranch also, and then when they left, I decided to go to Germany and be a DJ. So I was involved with that organization all the way up until about the mid-90s. They also, when they came and bought that ranch, they stayed with us in the commune in Oregon City. I love that place. I had a lot of fun, and there was a lot of really cool experiences.
A few other viewers told us about run-ins they had with Rajneeshis in all kinds of circumstances.
When I was working for a bull company, a bunch of those guys came by in their truck. They're all dressed in red, and I guess they were looking for someone who would sell them some steel bars. So we sold them some 1 3/8 by 20-foot steel bars, and they loaded it up in their truck. They tried to recruit one of our crew members. That didn't go over well, and so they just jumped back in the truck and left. But they seemed very nice, but very weird.
A viewer named Kathy told us she used to work for the state of Oregon, helping people with public assistance at the Portland office on Burnside.
I helped a family that had been brought here from, I believe, Arkansas to Rajneeshpuram. They were not happy with the place, so they were brought back to Portland in the middle of the night and dropped off in front of our office so that we could get them back home. Luckily, I was able to issue assistance to them and bus tickets and money for food, and they made it back.
If you have any Rajneesh memories or memorabilia, we know there's plenty of that out there too, let us know. Email the story at kgw.com. Include pictures or videos if you can, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. The federal government is reversing its termination of legal status for some international students. The backtrack comes after many of those students filed court challenges arguing the terminations were illegal and unjustified. Last month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said his department was revoking visas held by visitors who were acting, quote, counter to national interests. That included some students who protested Israel's war in Gaza and those who faced criminal charges. However, many students who had their legal status terminated said they did not fall under those categories, or they only had minor infractions on their record. More than 1,400 international students at 187 colleges and universities nationwide lost their legal status or had their visas revoked. That includes at least 13 students at Oregon State University, 7 at the University of Oregon, 3 at Portland State, and 3 at Portland Community College. A spokesperson for the administration says records will be restored for all students who were previously told they had to leave the country. Federal judges delivered 2 major blows to the Trump administration's efforts to penalize those who don't follow its policies. First, a ruling out of San Francisco bars the government from freezing or adding conditions to federal funds designated for so-called sanctuary cities. The challenge was brought by the city of San Francisco and 15 other cities and counties across the country, including Portland and Seattle. The term sanctuary cities generally describes limited or no local law enforcement cooperation with immigration authorities. The cities argue sanctuary policies make communities safer and encourage immigrants to report crimes without fear of being deported. A similar effort by the Trump administration was struck down in 2017, and now the courts appear to be saying the same limits that applied then still apply now. The Trump administration has not yet responded to this latest ruling, but the Justice Department is expected to appeal. Meanwhile, a different federal judge temporarily blocked the Department of Education's anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion actions. In February, the department told schools and colleges they need to end any practice that differentiates people based on their race. Earlier this month, it ordered states to gather signatures from local school systems certifying compliance with that order. Oregon had already said it would refuse to end DEI programs, even at the risk of losing federal funding. Oregon schools receive about $1 billion a year from the federal government. Portland Public Schools gets about $55 million alone. Now, the judge ruled that the demand from the Department of Education was too vague, possibly violated free speech rights, and went beyond the department's legal authority. The White House responded to the ruling, saying any judge opposing the effort was undermining the Constitution. Neither the Trump administration or the Department of Ed have said if they will appeal. Up next on The Story, we bring in Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino to look ahead at the weekend forecast, but not just that, he'll also share details about a new Arctic sea ice report and the science behind it. That's next when The Story returns. Welcome back. Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino, thrilled to have you here tonight. What are you tracking right now?
Hey, Evan, you know it's the weekend, so we've got to talk about the weekend weather. Immediately, what I've been tracking is this little thunderstorm that developed southwest of Mount Adams, south of Mount St. Helens, drifting towards Vancouver, Clark County, and Portland, but it's weakening as it does. We won't see anything from that, but it did produce a lightning strike. We also won't see any of the rain that's been hitting southern Oregon as that all stays on down to the south. Today we topped out at 75. We'll be about 5 degrees cooler tomorrow, but have a great Saturday. Turn sunny, get up to about 70 degrees, and while it'll be cooler on Sunday, still dry. So a really nice final weekend of April weather-wise coming up for us, and we may get a little drizzle on Tuesday, but that's about it. And then begin the month of May with another 80-degree day, but that's next week on Thursday. I've also been looking at this new imagery from NASA on the extent of the Arctic sea ice. Now, every year, the ice grows and grows during the dark, cold days of winter, and it usually peaks sometime in our spring, and this year it peaked in late March. And this is an animation from NASA showing the growth of that ice. But this was the lowest or the smallest maximum sea ice we've ever seen in the Arctic. Now, every year you get new sea ice growing, and then a lot of it will, or some of it anyway, will last throughout the course of the Arctic winter or summer, and then continue and build and get thicker and thicker. We're seeing less and less of that thick ice. The new ice is easier to melt away because it's not as thick. So again, this was March 22nd when we saw the Arctic sea ice at its greatest extent, but that extent was the lowest on record. It is the lowest sea ice peak that we've ever had. And this has been studied for decades. This is not like, oh, we got a couple of years of data. There's like 50 years of satellite data on this now. And it was 5.56 million square miles less than the last smallest peak, which was back in 2017. So very concerning in terms of climate change on our planet, Evan.
Yeah, what you're talking about the Arctic there. I'm curious if you know, Matt, about the Antarctic as well.
It's the same story down there. Of course, Arctic winter, Antarctic summer, and the minimum. So, of course, in the summer, the ice melts and retracts. And this Antarctic summer, which just concluded, they saw the biggest shrinkage of the ice pack down there, second biggest on record, tying 2024 and 2022. So it's a similar story in both hemispheres, where you're seeing much less ice in the summer, but also much less ice in the winter. Now, the good thing is maybe it'll open up shipping lanes. I know that the northern countries are looking at that, but what happens is this is a positive feedback loop, because the more open ocean you have in the Arctic, and remember, the Arctic is all ocean up here, the more heat that it traps. And yes, I know you're far north, but we have open ocean in the summer when it's light 24 hours a day. That ocean will absorb a lot of solar heat. So it's a positive feedback loop in that it keeps getting warmer and warmer. And that's a pattern we've been seeing, as I said, for decades. The scientists at NASA have been studying this for a long, long time. And the trend continues. Less Arctic ice both in summer and also now in winter, Evan.
Got it. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the explanation on that. And certainly interesting to see the images and the visuals from above as well. Well, that is the end of our show for tonight. Thank you for watching. Timbers 360 is coming your way next. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air the episode at 8:30 and 10:30 over on our TV and streaming app KGW+. It will also air on KGW+ the next day at 11:30 in the morning. You can download the free KGW+ app right now. It's on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great weekend. I'm with you for one more day on Monday next week, filling in for Blair Best. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll be sure to see you then.